Well, thanks everyone for coming. And yeah, thanks for the support. I really appreciate it. This is going to be setting your New Year's tech community resolutions, something that will likely be different for everyone. Bit of background on me. I'm Keith Atherton. I've been a solution architect and software developer for over 20 years. I'm a Microsoft MVP, a Power Apps community super user, and we'll cover some of those awards and some of the other programs in this session as well. Right, let's crack on. Okay, so what we're going to cover today is some content creation options, how you can get started, some of those awards that I mentioned as well, and some things to think about as well, some considerations. So thinking about where you are now, if you could use the team's reactions there, if you could just give a thumbs up if you're already a content creator, if you're speaking, blogging, getting out there, just be great to see who's out there. Quite a lot of folks, that's awesome. Thanks so much, that's great. Agnes is on there too. That's awesome. Fantastic. And if you could use the reaction, if you could use the love heart one for this, if you want to start creating content, you're not quite getting there yet, but you've got plans and ideas. Fantastic. Awesome. Thanks so much, folks. That's great. It's just for me to get an idea of the audience. That's perfect. What I would say as well, that this is just based on my experience. I think it's going to be different for everyone. I know there's some people that, speaking gels more with them. For me, it's one of the things I do. It's not the main thing that I do. Some people prefer blogging or writing, that's their main strength. And they might get different reactions as well. So I would just say, it may be a different experience for you, but I can share my experience anyway. So my experience of certainly the first few tech meetups that I've done and a few user groups, there's been some good ones, but I have to say there's quite a few out there that when I was getting started, it didn't grab my attention. There was some interesting content. It maybe was quite close to following something in Microsoft Learn or some step-by-step guide, and that's absolutely fine. But there weren't many things that caught my attention or got me fired up. It was more of a lecture style kind of thing. However, one of them that I did see that sort of inspired me to try speaking was by a great guy called Pete Gallagher. He does many things in the community, including co-running a user group in Nottingham. And he's an excellent speaker, really smart guy, does a lot with IoT and Azure, and he does a lot of other things as well. But the session that I saw him deliver was he'd 3D printed this robotic arm. He'd written an app in Blazor. So for those who are familiar, that's using C# to write web apps. And I think he used SignalR as well for some real-time communication with this robotic arm. And it's quite tangible. There's something you could see it moving about. It was quite cool. It got a few different moving parts. And it was kind of fun. And it really caught my attention. And I think when I was watching that, it really made me think, I'd love to do something like that. It's kind of inspired me to give it a go. But I did question myself, well, I'm not kind of completely comfortable speaking in front of people, whether it's virtual or in person. At that time, apart from with clients as a consultant, I'd not really done it that much. So it did make me challenge myself and think, it's a bit like getting on the roller coaster. It's like, can I do this? Am I going to try this? So I thought, yeah, why not? Let's give it a go. So after seeing that one, I put a few ideas together. What would I speak about? I was still quite new learning things like Azure at the time and a bit of Power Platform. So I was really sort of stepping back to say, well, what's going to be valuable? What do I think people might want to hear about? Particularly because I was quite new to things and I wasn't like a technical authority in a modern area like Azure or AWS or anything. So the first things I spoke about was I was quite new to Microsoft certifications, but I wanted to speak from that beginner's perspective of I've just taken my first one or two. Here's how I found it. And if anyone else is thinking of taking it, I can share that advice. If it can help people, that would be great as well. So some of the options out there to create content, I'll just go through a few. This is not exhaustive. There's a bunch of options. So one of the quick wins, and me and some other people have spoken about this recently, is going on the technical forums. So things like the Power Apps and Power Automate community, you can go on there, you can help answer questions. Sometimes it's just beginners getting started. They don't know how a gallery works or they're struggling with the power effects. It's a new language. So, even if you've got a few months experience with this or you're a few years in, you'd be surprised how many people you can help out there. Another common one, many people think about this, is blogging. It's something I do intermittently. I don't have the cadence I would like at the moment, but many people find their voice through writing, and that's their preference as well. So blogging could be a good option. There's also a video creation. You can do things like YouTube, which is quite common. There's other ways of putting that content out there as well. But again, in the Power Apps or Power Platform community, if we think of people like Lisa Crosby or Shane Young, there's some big names out there who do some really, really good sort of demonstrations on YouTube as well. Another one is public speaking at user groups and conferences, or including this VRT as well. That's another thing. It's one of the content creation options. I'd see when we look at this, getting out there in the community and doing things. And again, I don't know what kind of authority I am. This is just sharing my experience. But you don't need to be doing that to be part of the community. There's lots of other things you can do, and it's not for everyone. Another one is starting or joining a user group. Again, there's plenty of them out there for Power Platform and other tech stacks. But when I was getting started with Power Platform in the first year, there wasn't anything locally. They since have started something. I'm based up in Edinburgh, in Scotland, and we've got the Scottish Power Platform user group. So that got started, and then I joined it. But coincidentally, a few months before that, I was thinking of starting one up here, and it was just good timing. Another one is starting or joining a conference or other event. Now, when I think about conferences, it's not always just big arenas full of hundreds of people or thousands of people sometimes. Some of these could be things like online only events, and we'll cover some of those later on. Things like festive tech calendar and things where people upload videos, they get shared on a YouTube channel, and that's as far as it goes. It doesn't always mean in person with lots of staff and volunteers and money changing hands. It could be something as simple as a website or a YouTube channel. Another one as well, which is why I've got that funny little picture on the right-hand side, is creating samples. So things like Power Platform samples, you can create a solution or an app and share it with the community. Or if you enjoy Pro Code, you can go to PCF Gallery and you can share a PCF control there. Or things like custom connectors as well, which you can even get certified by Microsoft and put them up there, or just share them within the community. So there's a lot of options out there if you want to show your technical side of things and things that other people could use. Another one, briefly on that, is joining a community website team. Again, this is a bit niche. There are a few out there. Good things like Azure Charts and things like that. It's a bit specific to Azure, but you go there and there's some really good examples of different ways you can architect Azure solutions and combine them with other things. It's actually a really, really good website. That one actually is hosted in Azure and it's got only so much credit. So when that's used up every month, it's not available for the rest of the month until the credits get renewed for that person. I think it's really, really good initiative, that one. But there's many out there as well where you can either start one yourself or join and help others. Another thing is mentoring as well. So this is something that I've been doing a while with a few people at different levels, people looking for different things. But it's always someone kindly asked me if I would help them, and to be honest, I learn just as much from them as I help them with things. Like really, really smart people, and it could be career advice or technical advice. There's a bunch of ways you can help other people pay it forward. And there's a good one there, that Microsoft Power Up program as well. So I think some things like that are intended more for career switchers. I work in this field. I want to move into using the Power Platform. But again, there's many ways that you can help others. And the last one I'll mention, again, on this list, which is not the full list, is really contributing to open source. So you can go to GitHub. Again, part of that is uploading these samples and doing other things as well. But there are ways that you could, help out by writing documentation, correcting things, or building new features to a CLI tool or something like that. So I'll go through briefly some of the things that I've been getting involved with. So again, this is not something to strive towards, I would say. This is, this works for me. It's something that I do, or a few things that I do. And some things might appeal more to others. So it's purely personal. But for me, in terms of the community activities, I'll just blitz through some of these. So first off, I was active on social media. So once upon a time, like in another life, I used to be a game developer. And as part of that, I had my own limited company. I was a director. and I released games to Google Play and the Apple App Store. Just simple mobile apps, simple games, things like that. As part of that, I got some social media training, which was really nice. And it was about using mostly Twitter and LinkedIn. There was a few other things too, but there's some of the learnings that even though I closed that company and that was just a fun side hustle, I kind of maintained those social media skills. So when I was doing a bit more community work and getting out there and helping others, I was able to sort of leverage that and just post things, share things, and just kind of, stay active on those channels. So that's paid forward for me. That was quite good. Next thing I tried doing, again, inspired by the amazing Pete Gallagher, was some public speaking. Some of this I'll touch upon later, but some of it was like sessions like this or in-person speaking at user groups and looking at a couple of conferences as well. And that's kind of graduated over time as well. I didn't just jump into, 1,000 people in the room, big speaking, that kind of thing. This was, pre-recorded videos and then virtual sessions like this one, then in person. You don't have to jump in both feet first. You can take it step by step. Then I was lucky enough to do some mentoring, a couple of people at that time, quite early on. Then I got involved with answering the questions on the forums, something that I was a bit late to the party with. I wish I'd known about that one earlier, because that's something I enjoy doing, and I do that every week when I can find time for that one. One of the events that I help organise is the Festive Tech calendar, which is just every December that comes around. I've done that for 2 years in a row now. Do some blogging as well. That goes through fits and starts on how regular that is, but that's still something I'm active with. Again, touched upon this before, but there's a user group, the Scottish Power Platform user group. I'm one of the organisers there with two other great people. And I'm a podcast host as well for On Air in the Cloud. That's something that we do every 2 weeks. So again, some of these things have different cadences, but as well as doing those things, I've also got other activities, which I would say is the day job. I'm a solution architect as the day job. Also, like many others on this call, doing things like Microsoft certifications or just continuous learning. Doesn't always mean passing an exam. You should be, keeping up to date, following things on social media, or just, watching back videos and things like that. I'm also a LinkedIn learning instructor as well, which is typically 3 or 4 very busy months of a year, releasing one course per year. And related to that is being a Microsoft certified trainer. So while there's quite a lot of things on that list for the community, there's also other things, and I know it'll be the same for everyone here as well. You've got some things at work, some things outside of work. It might be really, really full on. And bearing in mind your capacity is an important thing. And I'll touch upon this later on, particularly in the, some things to think about, to consider. So while there's a lot of things on that community activities on the left, I would say that's not a flex, right? That's too much. Personally for me, it's just kind of grown and grown and grown and become more than it should be for me, because I've not discarded many things along the way. I've just kind of held on to them because they're fun. But this year, my new start, ironically, is to actually whittle some of this down and keep the favorites and just focus on them. But again, I'll touch upon that in a moment. So what we're going to look at is a few ways of getting started. Again, in the time we've got for this, we won't be too exhaustive or get too techy about what to do, but just a few things to think about. So there's a lot of great blogs out there. The screenshot there is Matt Devaney's. He's got a great blog. There's so many good ones. So many people are completely brand new to this, might think about, well, some of the things to do is buy a domain, myname.com, and then develop a blog website, whether it's using pro code tools or using ASP or whatever your background is. You might not be a coder, you might not be familiar. So one thing that I'd probably say with this is you don't have to start that way. There are a few other options available. So some folks will use LinkedIn. You can post things on there, or you could use platforms like Medium or Hashnode as well. So there's many ways that could just be that's the best solution for you, or that's phase one. I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn, get some following, find my feet. Do I enjoy doing this? Find out what my cadence is. Is it monthly, weekly, bi-weekly? And then consider, okay, now I want to set up my separate website just dedicated to me. and take it on a bit more thoroughly, like that way. And you can use things like WordPress, which I've used in the past, which is awesome. And there's many other tools out there as well. So Ghost is one. I know a few people using Ghost, and Hugo is the one that I personally use. So that's one of those static site generators where you can use things like Markdown language. You can run a few scripts and actually builds the website for you. And you can pick themes from a portfolio of themes as well. One thing I do as well, I host on GitHub. That's a great way of getting some free hosting if you need to as well. And you can use that with a custom domain if you need to. Again, I won't get techie here, but that's the approach I use. Hugo and host it on GitHub. But depends how technical it is and how far down the rabbit hole of being technical you want to do. You can just spin up something in WordPress, or GoDaddy or something fairly straightforward. So another thing I'll mention as well is creating videos. I follow many people on YouTube, and there's some great things out there, such as Shane Young's channel right there. And again, a few people brand new to this might be thinking, I need to invest in some, expensive tools like Adobe Premiere, or set up a studio with a full green screen and lighting and all the fancy audio gear. But I would say again, alternatives, you don't need to do that way. When I started doing a few videos, it was really just using the headset I use for work. I didn't even show my face or the background, so I didn't need to care about that. I just did screen records, and that was a good way of getting started. So things like OBS Studio, that's a great free tool to record your screen. There's many, you could use the Xbox app on Windows. You could use Teams to record the screen. There's a bunch of options. And there's some great tools out there as well. Many of us have got Clipchamp in Windows, which you can use, but there's some good tools like CapCut or DaVinci. A good friend showed me how to use DaVinci fairly recently. It was a great walkthrough. Even people in Hollywood use DaVinci, and there's a great free offering that you can use for that as well. Some really good effects and some good editing options. Great tool. And again, many of us might be familiar. YouTube is a great way to host things as well. There's a lot of content out there. I do know a few content creators who do some live streaming using Twitch or some other means as well. But I'd probably say YouTube is probably the most well known out of those. Okay. So another thing is public speaking. Again, I mentioned that the way I kind of graduated wasn't just jumping into a big conference with hundreds of people, and a lot of people can find that daunting, and that's perfectly natural. It's certainly not for everyone. I know some really big names in the community, some of them even with awards like MVP awards and things like that, who don't speak. They don't publicly do public speaking at conferences. So it's not something that's a must if you're aiming for an award or becoming a name out there, I would say. But if you were interested, a few things I've done again is record a presentation video ahead of time. The first one I did was Festive Tech Calendar, and that worked really well for me. There was going to be no one in the audience. It's not a live presentation. It was just, I don't know how many takes I did. It was crazy. I did like 20 takes before I was really happy with that. It's only like a half-an-hour video as well. It was bonkers really, but I was so precious over that first one that I've got to get this as well as I can and make it as high quality as I can. And again, that was using a headset, a few slides, and a screen capture for some Azure bot service. That's all that was. But that was my starting point. And then what I moved up to next, again, some of this may appeal more for some people more than others, but then speaking at a user group virtually. When I got started doing this, it was actually during the pandemic anyway, so I couldn't deliver in person. It had to be virtual if I wanted to speak at a user group. That seemed to go quite well. And then I just kind of leveled up from there. In my mind, leveling up anyway is then speaking at another user group, but in person. Then speaking at a conference after that, it was kind of step by step. What was I comfortable with? And each step was almost like an achievement, kind of, taking the next level. Could I do it? Did I enjoy doing it? Do I want to do more? So there were things to think about there. Another thing I've only done fairly recently was delivering a joint session with someone else. So if you don't want to be up there by yourself, this is a great option. I did a talk recently with someone called Natalie. She's a great speaker, really nice person, very smart. And it was so easy for us to bounce back and forth. And when the other one's catching a breath or sharing the screen, we could hand over to the other. And we seem to complement each other well as a team there. So that's always an option if you want to get started, but not be by yourself on the stage. So Mentioned those pre-recorded video options. I'll mention a few up here. Again, we talked about YouTube or Twitch. So some of the great events out there, I will plug Festive Tech Calendar. Full disclaimer, I'm one of the organizers for that one, but one of the reasons I like that one is it's technology agnostic. It's not just Power Platform or Azure. I think it did start off as like an Azure Advent Calendar, but it's since become more agnostic. So it could be AWS, it could be GCP. It doesn't even have to stay with a Microsoft stack. You can deliver anything. But there's a lot of sessions with like on mental health and soft skills and many other things as well. Diversity, we encourage it all. So and it's got a special place in my heart because that was the first place I delivered a pre-recorded session to. That was my starting point. I was lucky enough to join the organizing team after that as well, with a handful of other people as well. Another good one I only learned about a year ago was Sci-Fi DevCon. So if you want to deliver any pre-recorded videos or blogs with a sci-fi theme or referencing sci-fi films, this is a great one by Brian Gorman, who's based in the US, who created this one. And again, I only fairly recently became aware of that. So I was lucky enough to submit for that one last year. And Brian's always looking for speakers, particularly new speakers. So it's a great way of getting out there, again, as a pre-record, if that's something that appeals. Another good thing that's out there is Scottish Summit. Now, predominantly, that's the few days of conference. That's in person. Now, last year, totally upfront, I submitted a couple of sessions. They're all rejected. They weren't good enough. Totally fine. But the great thing that they did is they offered a pre-conference day on their YouTube channel for people who still wanted to deliver some content as a video. So again, that was a way that I could still deliver something. It wasn't the intended conference, but you could still get something out there. So I'm hoping they do that again this year, but time will tell on that one. And there's a few other things out there as well. I mentioned these Azure-based ones because I've delivered for these before. It might not be to everyone's taste if this is mostly biz apps here. But things like Azure Back to School, which is a great one, I think was every September by Dwayne Netwick. I think Derek helps him with that one as well. And Azure Spring Clean as well. Again, these could be blogs or videos that you create ahead of time, you submit them, and they're drip fed throughout that month or that time period. So again, they could be ways of easing into presenting. Doesn't always need to be standing on the stage. And I'd be remiss without mentioning these wonderful VRTs put on by Sarah and ShortList as well. So I'd highly recommend speaking at these. Sarah's always been really supportive in the community and always welcomes new speakers. And there's great support if you're just getting started, want to know how do you speak, how long's the session, what do we need to talk about. So I would genuinely say this is a really good place to get started, and it's worth speaking to Sarah. Even if you want to get some ideas or you're considering it, just have a chat with Sarah. So for me, one of the ones I'm looking out for, which is coming very soon, is Josh's session as well. And Josh, thanks for joining us on the call as well. So Josh is a great speaker. He's actually spoke at our user group before as well. Knocked it out of the park with live demos and everything on his first session. Amazing. So I know that one's going to be a good one. So I'd highly recommend checking that one out. That's next week. The thing I mentioned before as well is user groups as well. There's a bunch of options. Again, I had this rough idea of starting a user group, but it felt daunting. I was like, well, okay, what kind of pages do you create? Social media channels, like where do I start? So as I was considering that, there's a few folks, Charlie Phipps and Stuart Baxter started the Scottish Power Platform user group. And I was lucky enough to be at their first in-person one in Edinburgh. We kind of changed location throughout Scotland. It's not like one home ground that we have. It kind of either we did one in Glasgow. We're probably going to do one in somewhere in the Central Belt next time as well. So that was a really good one that started up at the time. I was looking to start one. I was lucky enough to speak and then eventually join that organising team when they was looking to get a few more hands on deck, just to the amount of work that they have to go through. And they're great guys as well. They're a great team to join for sure. So some of the other ones there, again, a few Azure mentions, because that's how I got started. My first year of speaking was all Azure based. That's how I got started. It was mostly Azure and AI for me. So things like Glasgow Azure User Group, I spoke there a few times, have been really good. The Welsh Azure User Group as well, which is run by a couple of Microsoft folks. It used to be an MVP and a Microsoft person, but they both work for the mothership now, both great guys. So I'd highly recommend reaching out to user groups. There's a lot of them out there that are actually begging for speakers. You'd be quite surprised, rather than thinking, will they accept me? I don't know if I'll get in. You'd be surprised, is anyone free? We've got an event next month, only one speaker, we need a second. Is anyone there? You'd be quite surprised how in demand speakers are. So the other thing that I'd mention as well, some of the duties, now that I'm part of an organising team, if you do run a group, and it is a lot of fun, but it can be work, some of that time can go into things like finding a venue, or for our group, the Scottish one is finding different venues each time to keep things fresh. You've got things like scheduling the events. You may stream events like this one's been streamed, and then the recording will be uploaded. That's what Sarah and team do for this one. You might want to create a dedicated website as well. That's quite common practice. And you've got things like Eventbrite, Meetup, and many other pages you can use to support the event, or a way of selling tickets to events as well. On and on and on, including finding sponsorship. So something we do and many other groups do is get the sponsorship. So if you want to put the food and drink on at the event, or the sponsor might actually provide the venue, they might be the host for that venue, and maybe chip in for some of the refreshments as well. It's funny that, chasing up sponsors, chasing up the money, when's it gone in the account, when can you pay to hire a venue? There could be quite a lot of logistics, a lot more than I first thought there would be, to be honest. So it is a lot of fun, but it can be a lot of work as well. So again, this is a great team activity, in my experience. So we'll look at a few community awards. Now, some people have got goals to aim for these awards, and I think that's great. Some people, I was quite lucky with a couple of the awards where they came along by surprise. I know that's happened with many other people too. Things like the Super User Award. I didn't even know that was an award or a title. I got an email one day saying there's this thing called a Super User. So that was nice. So we'll cover some of these just now. So first up, I will say there's a lot of awards. Now, many of us might work in the Microsoft stack, so many of us might be aware of things like Microsoft MVP, but there's also other MVPs. There's even something called a Mendix MVP, which I know some people are big fans of that system. But there's also things as well out there like AWS, Heroes, GitHub Stars. I mean, check out the GitHub Star. I mean, that plaque is awesome. I quite like that with the big gold star. That's cool. And there's many others out there that have been around for a long time as well. Things like IBM Champions and Oracle Aces. These have all got their own benefits, their own kind of programs, in different ways you can, connect with people. It's great because you connect, be part of a club. Some of them have different events that you can go to. And some of them, you're lucky enough to get benefits like, credits to use on Azure, or subscriptions for Visual Studio, things like that. So I'll focus on one. This is just personally because I probably know the most about this award than some of the others. They've all got different value, different benefits. Now, this is one I'm familiar with. It's not a photo of mine. That's a better photo than the photo I've got of mine. But this is the Most Valuable Professional Award. And there's a blurb there about what that recognizes. But really, it's if you're an expert in that domain. So this could be business applications, which the categories have changed a little recently. So I'll go from my experience, which is business applications, or biz apps, which is predominantly the Power Platform and Dynamics 365 in there. But you might be a security MVP, or an Azure MVP, or IoT. I think my friend Pete's an IoT MVP. And it's really if you get out there and you share content and help others. Again, doesn't always mean standing on stage. It might mean that you upload samples, or you've got an amazing blog, or you mentor lots of people. I know some people out there do more mentoring and they don't even brag about it online, or broadcast that, and that's awesome. So to meet them, you wouldn't know. The person who nominated me, she's fantastic. She's a .NET developer in developer tools. She's not even in the biz app space, and she's barely online. But she does so much with the .NET Foundation and helping others, lots of mentoring. You wouldn't know it just by going online. So there's many ways you can contribute to get these awards. So to get this award, some of us might know this, you need to be nominated by an active MVP or Microsoft full-time employee, or FTE, sometimes it's referred to. Now, with this particular program, it's been around for a long time, since 1993. So it's got some prestige, it's some vintage now, I should say. It's been around for a while. You do get some benefits. So these are not NDA, these are all publicly out there on the website for MVPs, but you get early access to Microsoft products. You've got direct comms with the product teams as well. You can join calls and give feedback on those products, which is really good. Or you can nag them and say, this is still broke, can you fix it? Or can you add a new feature? It's quite cool, actually. That's probably one of the standouts for me, one of the benefits. They also have an MVP summit every year as well. And just in recent times, that's gone back to being in person, I think, as of last year, coming out of the pandemic. And apparently that's a good experience. So hopefully I'll make my first one in March this year. And then you get some tangible tech gadget goodies that we all love. So we get things like a Visual Studio technical subscription. And with that, you may get some Azure credits and a few other things. And you can get an Office 365 subscription as well. So you can get your own tenant. You can play around with things. Quite cool. So another award that I'll mention as well, I know some of us on this call here, there's some big names on the call today that have got this award, including the MVP as well, including recently awarded MVPs. So it's great to see folks here. This Super User Award was helping out in the forums. And this was just a really lovely surprise email one day. And me and actually co-organizer of the user group, or SPUG as we call it, Stuart Baxter, got this award at the same time as well. That if you help enough on the forums, so you're a contributor, and a big part of that is answering questions and helping solve problems for the people. Sometimes it's teasing that information out before you get to a solution, or sometimes it might be writing a blog post. You can actually upload blog posts and even video content to these forums as well. But really, it's mostly weighted towards you solving problems, helping people fix it. And many of these people, they're brand new to the Power Platform. What's Power Effects? What command do I need to save a record? What do I do here? What's a gallery? I don't know how it works. You'd be surprised. Many people are just finding their feet, and this is a great way you can encourage people and help them get started in the way that many people help me when I get started. So it's great to sort of pay it back, even just a little way. So along the way, there was a few different ranks you can get, things like Resolver 1, 2, and so on, helpers or continued contributors. So there was all these different ranks. Dare I say it, a bit gamified as you go to say, oh, you've helped enough people, you've put enough replies in that, thanks for your 10th reply, that's great. Thanks for your 5th solution, that's awesome. And then one day I was lucky enough to get this email about this super user status that you get. And again, a bit like the MVP and others, you do get a few other benefits, mostly about networking with other super users. You get to go to like meetings as well. You can meet them, ask questions, and find out other ways where you can help people more effectively as well. So it kind of helps you do more to help other people. So it's a win-win. It's a really good scheme to get involved with. There's also someone there as well, something I should say as well, the SUIT program. So if you're a super user in training, SUIT, there's a program there you can sign up if you want to become a super user and help people on things like this as well. And you get all the guidance and ways of, here's how you can maybe word things, and here's the way of helping people who are still waiting for answers. So it's, really good program, highly recommended. Now, one of the last sections I'll go on to is things to think about. And for me, this has become more important in recent times. I think for so long, I've got busy doing community work, which I love doing. And I met so many awesome people. Some have become friends as well. But sometimes I've maybe just been on the treadmill and got so busy, I've not taken a step back to say, is this too much? Am I doing the things that I want to be doing? So here's a little section just to cover a few of those things. So being honest with yourself is important. So we just have a skim through that. So the way I'd see something like this is there's a lot of different motivations when you help people and when you get out there as well. And some of it can be mostly for yourself, for your career. That's cool. For me, when I started speaking, it was partly to do with a challenge of, well, Pete's made this fun. Can I make this fun? Because it wasn't just Pete having fun. Everyone attending was loving it as well. You could tell. people were getting engaged. People were then going off and trying their own things and 3D printing their own things, or looking to buy what, it inspired people. Right. That was the short version. So for me, it was partly, can I do this and have fun, and other people enjoy it too? So is it worth it? But also I was looking to upskill in Azure and some other cloud skills to find a new job where I could actually use those skills. Because in my current job, we weren't able to use that. It was more on-prem, it was more legacy. It did the job, it was great, but I kind of wanted a bit more. I was a bit selfish. I wanted to kind of scale up and modernize these skills, upskill, but actually use them in a day job, not just academically learn them. So for me, I had kind of two prongs. One, I want to challenge myself, but two, I want to get the name out there and see, to demonstrate I know these skills, and that's cool. Whatever works for you. So some of the reasons that might work for people, I won't go through in fine detail. Again, sharing knowledge with others, that is a big part of it for me, helping others as others have helped me as well. And that's a great way to, get involved. Boosting the personal brand. Again, when I started, that was a small part of it that I built up was, well, I don't want to just learn it. I want to use it, but demonstrate I know these skills. So if I do come around to job search time, I've got a bit of a portfolio to point to. Networking with others, this has been a sort of a surprise bonus for me. That's happened a lot more than I expected. The people I've met has been the biggest part of this for me, more than the awards. But sometimes the awards have led to joining a club where you can network with others. So it's a bit of a a chicken and egg with that, really. But personal growth as well. Again, for me, I wanted to upskill, learn some new skills, modernize those skills. That was a key thing for me. I'd been doing some legacy win forms on-prem stuff for years, and it was fine. It worked for the business, but I knew that if I was made redundant or wanted to move on, where did I go next? My market was quite limited. Again, something Sarah can help out with when it comes to job searching. Shameless plug. Another thing was to try something new. My first presentation was pushing myself, was can I do it? But also, would I enjoy it? If I enjoy it, I'll keep doing it. And luckily I've stuck with it, and I kept doing it as well. So for me, it's getting out there. And some of the other the activities I've been mentioning as well was, oh, podcast. Yeah, let me give that a go. That's something new. Would I enjoy it? If not, I'll can it after a few months. Turns out I enjoy it, so I'm still doing it. Again, I mentioned this, if you want to demonstrate you're a subject matter expert, again, if you're thinking about job searching or becoming a contractor, going freelance, starting your own consultancy, which a friend of mine did in the last couple of months, this is getting your name out there, and it might help promote your business or whatever you move on to next. Documenting knowledge for your own reference. I've lost count of the amount of times people who've written a blog, really, really good blog, and then when they've searched for that piece of advice in a year's time, when they've forgotten how to do something, their own blog has come up and they've answered their own question. It's been a great reference. I know many people who do that as well. So, it could be selfless and selfish too. It can help everyone. This is an interesting one, improving the communication and presentation skills. So for me, when I gave the first presentation, I'd already been a consultant for many years. Many of us deal with customers. Sometimes it's internal customers. It doesn't always have to be external. And it's a way of, well, can I improve those skills? Can I speak more clearly? Can I present myself better? That can help your career too as well. And there's been some studies and statistics on this as well, that, if you can present well, whether that's to again, you want to start your own business, or you're speaking to your manager about a potential promotion or a job interview, that's a presentation of a kind. All these ways rely on good communication skills, and they can all further your career and help you as well. You could have been told to, it could have been part of your mentoring program. It could have been that, your boss says, I really think you should be doing this. It may be that you want to do it too, but yeah, you may have been told to. And the last one I'll touch upon as well is to make money. There are ways. Many of the contributions I do, I'll cover this in a moment, they are just public, they're free, and they're out there to help people. But there are ways you can make money. I do have friends who get paid to write blog posts for websites, and they get paid a lot. For me, I've got that LinkedIn instructor, and I've got a couple of courses out there. Now, it's not a day job income that it brings in, but it's a paid gig. It brings money in. In fact, I do have, I'll mention this briefly as well. I do have a friend, he's not on the call, that he got approached by a website that offers like Microsoft certification exam questions and courses. And he was approached to say, could you write us a few hundred questions for Azure 900, Azure Fundamentals. That was AZ 900. And I can't remember how many it was. It's a few hundred questions, and they offered him like 4 grand to write these questions. And he's like, yeah, I've got a weekend free. And he just blasted through them in one weekend and just made money from it. So there are ways you can get out there, or opportunities to write books or paid blog posts or paid other contributions can come about too. What I mentioned with that as well, some of the awards, like the MVP one, when I was lucky enough to get nominated for that, there was mention of, it was very clear that it was only free community contributions would count to the award. So when I do things like a paid blog post or a LinkedIn learning course, that doesn't count towards the award. It's a paid gig, side hustle, completely separate. Don't know if the rules have changed, but something to bear in mind. Okay, so one thing I mentioned is if you're thinking about where to start, let's say someone approached me recently, said, look, I don't know where to start blogging, speaking, or something else. You have like 2 or 3 competing things to get started. And it was in this kind of limbo, this like analysis paralysis of like, I don't know which one to start. They all sound fun. I don't know where my strength lies. There's a really good book called Don't Read This Book. Ironically, do read this book. It's good. It is really good. And it's quite a short book. And I got this when I was doing the game development. So I was like, well, I like being creative and I like the technical side of things. Can I combine them in some way? There's some fun side thing, not as a business to start with, just as a fun thing. So this was a great way to kind of boil down. If you've got lots of ideas and lots of energy, how can you get a short list? And if you don't read it, the quick version is do what you love. And there's a few exercises in here where you just list all the things you love, drawing, painting, playing the guitar, being a musician, blah, 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 blah. But then you kind of order them, which ones do you love more? And secondly, playing to your strengths. So I know a really good blogger. He loves blogging, he loves writing, and he's a great writer. It's a great fit. And it's successful and it's going really well. Now, for me, when I was doing the game development, this helped me come around to that. I've since reread this book a few times when I've kind of come across different forks in the road of, well, I've been offered a couple of opportunities. I'm not sure which one to go. This has helped sort of really sort of focus on what might be the next best move for me. So really, really good book. Highly recommend it. Another thing I mentioned as well is that all of us have got different voices, different perspectives. So for me, 20 plus years experience as a pro dev, that's kind of a big background for me in terms of the day job, but you might have other who may or may not be aware. I think I'm dropped off a moment there. You might be aware or might not be aware that many people out there have got different backgrounds. Now, some of them can be transferable skills into if you're doing community contributions or help with the day job. I know some things have helped with me, but it could also be a bit more to your story and lend a bit more to your voice as well. I know some career switchers in the Power Platform who've got a wealth of experience above me in terms of business knowledge and domain knowledge that I don't have. But if you need, a code monkey to write something pro code based, I might be able to help out. So yeah, one of the ones I mentioned here was just we've got all got different skills and backgrounds, and we can use that potentially in some of these activities we do, or it might help inform as well where we want to contribute more. Some people might, again, writing might appeal more, or presenting, or being up on stage might be more appealing to others as well. In terms of those backgrounds as well, not sure if I mentioned this, but Heini Ilmarinen as well is an Azure MVP and is a really good artist and illustrator, much better than me. And she's really cool. When she does demonstrations and presentations, she often hand draws the slides. Even that's all hand drawn there, and it's often on a tablet immediately as she's going through the session as well. And it adds that different flavor that many other of us just using PowerPoint with stock text and images. We don't have that same offering. So it might be worth thinking about what can you bring to the table, what's unique to you, what's something novel that you can help with. Another thing as well is choosing an alias as well. So someone was talking to me recently about Do they use their name when they start putting content out there? Do they use something that's product based? Do they use something that is, something they like to do? For me, would it be Keith Dev? Would it just be my name? Would it be based on a product? I would say, I'm not saying don't use a product-based alias, but there are risks. If something changes, it's not going to be called Dynamics anymore, whatever it would be, is it going to catch you out? Do you want to try and future-proof it? Something to think about. I do know someone who's done something similar where they chose something like, Robot Dude or something like that, and they don't even use their profile photo. They use some graphic instead as well. And they said sometimes they meet people at conferences and like, oh, you're Robot Dude. It's not Robot Dude, by the way, but no, oh, you're that. They didn't know it's that person. So again, bearing in mind networking, meeting other people, if you want your personal brand out there, that's maybe a factor in terms of the naming as well. Just a thought. Now, one thing I kind of hinted about this, but again, when I had that big list of things I do, I've just realized there's things I haven't mentioned, like volunteering at events, co-organizing other events like Data Scotland and Scottish Summit as well. I've been a volunteer for that as well. It can be tempting to do everything or at least try everything. And for me, because being a consultant, it's part of my nature. I like the variety. I like trying new things. I like helping people. And I kind of myself, fell into maybe a bit of a trap of trying many things and then realizing a bit like, oh, I think I've bitten off more than I can chew here. Keeping up with it, but sometimes it pushes other things out of life. So one thing to bear in mind, which is related to this, is the consistency as well. So I know people who've got blogs and other contributions, videos, where they have a regular consistency. So at the top is an example of, actually someone I know who actually started a blog, released 3 posts on day one, and then had maybe another 2 or 3 posts, and then nothing for about 6 months. And then the bottom one is maybe more about, even if it's monthly, once a month for a blog, whatever it may be, you got that consistency, whether it's a program releasing on a TV channel once a week, you know when to look forward to it, you know when it's coming, and it keeps the content current. It's not like, well, I won't read that blog because it was 6 months ago. There's been nothing since. I would say 2 things is consider what's manageable for you. We can all get excited and enthusiastic at the start and have this big burst of energy and have the big bang. But really, if you think, realistically, I might be able to do one every 2 weeks or one every 4 weeks or once a month or whatever it may be. It's worth bearing that in mind and keeping that regular consistency. It can help a lot of the algorithms on social media as well. And the other thing as well, again, I touched upon there, what would you like to follow? If someone you followed on YouTube had like 5 videos in one day and then nothing for 3 months, you may not want to follow, or they may just fall off your radar a bit. So consider what other people might want to. One thing I mentioned as well is I think that book mentions this as well as many others as well, is about what your current balance is in life. How are you sharing your time between things? And there's a few examples of this I've seen where people divide life into, say, 4 different domains or 8 or 10 or whatever it may be. For simplicity, I'll divide it into these that we can see right here. Things like self-care, taking rest, taking holidays, health, getting exercise, and community there. Let's say community for the tech community work that we're looking at. Now, the things that I went through before, and again, I'll be completely open about this, is that when I've added these things as I've gone through, they've added things each week, but none of them have fell off because I enjoy them all. It's all good fun. But it's not like, well, I'll just keep 3 things, or, well, yeah, I'm bored of that one. I don't have time for this one. They've just added to my weekly or monthly commitments. Or festive tech calendar. We start planning that in the summer, even though it's a December thing. We're looking for speakers, setting up sessionized pages, all of that stuff. So a lot of people might just see what we did in December, but there's a lot of months outside of that, reviewing people's submissions, things like this. So again, I would say, bearing that in mind, you probably don't want to aim for something like this. It might end up like that if you don't keep a close eye on it. And there's one stage, it wasn't that bad for me, but it was approaching too much, in my opinion, for me. It makes sense to, bring it back to what's a healthy balance for you with all the other things. I don't want to do community work and exclude my health. I don't want to do that and exclude my relationships. And me and a good friend spoke recently about, creating a time budget. And there's a lot of good books on things like this, or whether you say that day is the finance day, that day is the health day, or whether you say so many hours per week. So, me and a friend have been helping each other with this, and it's still a work in progress for me. But I would say bear that in mind as well. It can be tempting to try lots of things. I'll share some advice as well. If any of us here are looking to sort of, again, get your name out there or aim for one of these community awards, and again, that's great. If you've got goals, it's great to have goals. When I was lucky enough to get nominated for the MVP award. And when I was working my activities towards hearing back about the award and submitting the activities I've done, someone did give me this advice, which I'll let you read through a moment. So I really appreciated them sharing that with me, because it could be tempting to say, well, I'll just try and ramp things up and really kind of, tip the odds to get this award, or how much is enough? What level are they looking for? It's quite opaque, probably quite rightly, how they score that award and give it to people. Otherwise, you might find people who do just enough to get the award. But it was good advice, because at the time it was on my mind to take on a few extra things. One, because I wanted to do them, but two, I'm like, well, that would help, towards an award or something as well. So I would say it's worth bearing that in mind. Also, I know a few other people like Jucker here. There's a few quotes on this blog post he did, which is called My Final Microsoft MVP Award. Someone who's had the award for years, big name, really smart person, great guy as well. Some people have found that if they've taken it to a certain level where they're constantly on alert, they're constantly putting out content or thinking about how can I create content, and it becomes a big part of their life. Sometimes it can have repercussions as well. I do know other people who shared with me, repercussions on home life and other things as well, because they really dedicated to, I'm flying to conferences every month. I'm away from my family very often. It's a really good article. I'd highly recommend reading it. Another thing as well, there's many things about imposter syndrome. I can't really do it justice in the time we have, so I'll fly through this. And there's a good video there by Donna Sarkar and many other people who've spoken about this and their personal experience. I've certainly got plenty of personal experience on this as well, including this session today, not going to lie. So there's a few things out there where, bearing in mind that no one's going to know everything, don't feel too perfectionist. Again, we all have different perspectives. My pro code and other experiences, I've lived in a few countries, I've worked in a few sectors. That might be very, very different from some other people. There may be value in that. Who knows? A good one is don't compare yourself with others. If I think, well, why do I start a YouTube channel if Shane Young or someone has got gazillions of followers? Well, why even bother? We've all got something to offer. And someone told me recently, it's good to compare yourself with the previous you in the past. Are you growing and developing? That's a better comparison than with other people. Again, your voice can inspire others. It happened to me from Pete and many others who've presented out there. And again, sessions like this, some people might get daunted about speaking, thinking, well, what if, I'm going to get tough questions, or what if there's heckling, or what if it's going to be a tough crowd? Bear in mind, a lot of people here, I'm getting a lot of support from amazing people here today, including you. And people are here because they want to be here. They're supporting you. They want to learn for themselves. So if you do go in, just bear in mind, people are there because they want to be there. Constructive criticism is a good one. Someone watches this, they're like, yes, it's rubbish, isn't it? Like, that's all right, but I'm not going to get much from that. But if someone said, well, he used too many acronyms, I didn't know what that meant, or he was too quiet, or it was all right, but he spoke a bit fast. There's things that you can genuinely get feedback and learn from to improve for the next time. I'd say they are valuable. They are worth listening to. Another one related to that is learning from your mistakes and moving on. If the network cuts out and then you rejoin it to give your presentation, you completely panic and get flustered. That's completely natural feeling. Or do you just crack on and you just, you acknowledge it and you move on and deal with it the best you can? There's ways of handling mistakes and moving on, right? And the last one I would say is celebrating your wins. Every time you put yourself out there and do these things, again, you don't have to be on the stage. You win an award, even get nominated for an award. You don't get it. They're wins. Celebrate that. You've worked hard for it. It didn't go to plan. You know, you got tough questions. It was a tough crowd. Celebrate. You work through it. You put yourself out there. You've tried. Still an achievement, right? So pretty much on the minute, I'm going to wrap things up because I did want to cover a lot today. So apologies for the full hour here. But yeah, some content creation options. There's a ton of ways you can get involved, how you can get involved with a handful of them. Some of those community awards. And again, we'll all have different motivations and thoughts on those awards. And that's cool too. And some of the things to think about in terms of getting a good balance, not overdoing it, but also have a think, be honest with yourself. Why are you doing it as well? And with that, thank you very much. Appreciate your time, everyone.
Thanks, Keith. That was really interesting. Knowing what you're like as well, watching those slides with the amount of activities that you've got, I was sort of almost rolling my eyes. You doing too much.
So was I when I was making the slide. I was like, actually, it went off one column. I was like, that's too much. I even had to leave things out to boil it down. So get another realization, it's too much.
I know. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody that's looking to get into community, or any comments on your own experience?
No,
anything I thought. The newest MVP.
Yeah, congratulations to Craig. New MVP right here.
It still does not feel real. It's very odd. I wrote it down earlier today. I just like, it doesn't make sense, but yeah, thank you. It's really appreciated.
Well deserved.
The only thing I think you missed, Keith, and it's hard to say that when you do so much for the community, it's wicked, and you're a genuine inspiration. It's fantastic. It's the community calls that Microsoft run, and I've not a Q&A, but I've put a link in the chat.
Thank you.
They're always looking for new speakers, and again, that might be quite daunting because it's, you know, Microsoft people and it's people from all over the world on those calls, but they run several a week, and they always ask the people just to run a small 10-15 minute presentation on anything, a bit of code that you wrote that might help someone else out. You don't have to kind of like be a celebrity of this community world to go and present on one of these Microsoft calls. So there's a form that you can go and fill in. You can put your ideas in, and much like the VRTs, the support network to go and deliver on those is really, really good. I did my first one in December, and I won't lie, I was absolutely bricking it. But there's a lot of really good support around, and that 10 minutes just went really, really fast. And yeah, got loads of cool feedback, which is great. It doesn't have to be like this groundbreaking, amazing thing that no one's ever seen before, because much like the content that we're sharing, there's always new people to the Power Platform. There's always people that don't know how to use a gallery, or don't know how to write a patch function, or don't know how to do something in Power Automate. Go on these calls and show people, because there's always first timers on those calls. There's always first timers on these. There's always people that are going to learn. So that's definitely another avenue. And again, I've found virtually speaking quite safe. Public speaking still daunts me a little bit, but virtually I'm in like the comfort of my own office around, you know, things that I'm happy with and I can control and I'm cool with. So doing the virtual speaking, I think, is like a really good segue in if you want to go and do the public stuff. And there's lots of really good opportunities out there. So yeah, just thought I'd add that one. But thanks, Keith. It was a really awesome session. I really enjoyed it. So cheers, mate.
Cheers, Craig.
You get a real kick out of it as well, don't you? When you've done something for the first time.
It's great. It's an achievement. Yeah, you pushed yourself. It's good fun.
Putting yourself out there is a big deal. It took me years, and there's lots of people on this call I had this conversation with before. I think that first blog post, that first virtual speaker session, that first solution on the forum, that's still one of my biggest buzzes. When you wake up overnight and you've got an email going, hey, that person who asked that question has marked your solution as the one that's really helped them out. Just little things like that, I think, wicked. And it makes you want to go and do these things again, because you know you're adding value to someone else. Even if it's something really easy for us that we can literally do on our sleep, for someone else, that's really helped them in a really difficult situation, and they can't get further until you've given them a bit of help. There's always those lovely little bit of buzzes when you do something for the first time in the community. It kind of inspires you to carry on, which is pretty cool.
Certainly does. Yeah. Thanks, Craig. Great. Any other questions? I know we're kind of just a little over time. You could always reach out to me afterwards, by the way, but fire away if you do.
Yeah, hi, Kate. My name is Harshit. I just want to thank Kath, you and Sarah for setting up this call. I think it is great help. It's almost like decade for me on IT industry, working on IT industry, and I think just started working on Power Platform. I think whatever you said, it's going to help me a lot, frankly speaking. And I'm following up all you guys on LinkedIn, and thank you so much for helping us to grow more on this Power Platform. Thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for the feedback. I really appreciate that, and enjoy the journey. You know, it's something I've transitioned to using the Power Platform, and there's many other great tech stacks out there from other backgrounds, and I'm really enjoying it too. A big part of that is this community, and many of us are on the call today. So thanks, Harshit. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the shout outs in there, Keith, as well, for the VRTs. Rightly, you mentioned that Josh is speaking next week. Josh kindly bumped his session from today for next week so that you could do the the New Year resolution session.
Very kind. Thanks, Josh. Yeah.
Looking forward to that. And I mean, I first met Josh at the Scottish Power Platform user group, so sort of shout out back at you there. They're really good sessions. I always jump on those. I'm looking forward to hearing this live at the end of the month in Manchester. At the user group there, I'll see some of your faces in person, I think.
Yeah, if anyone can make that, that's Wednesday the 24th. Yeah, it's going to be at the ANS office, Fusion office at Archway in Manchester. So it'll be a little different. Some of this was Teams based, and we may have a special guest on stage. I won't spoil anything right now. But yeah, if anyone can make it, it'll be great to see you there. And also Charles Sexton, who's on the call, is going to be delivering the first talk of that evening. And Charles is a great speaker, so I'd highly recommend coming along just for that, really.
Thank you.
I've been actively encouraging people to come along to that. Try and get as many people as possible in Manchester.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate that.
There's also going to be pizza. So if nothing else, just come along for some free food and go again. That's what I'm doing.
That's why I'm going.
Beer. I'm a little bit nervous that you guys are up from Cornwall.
We'll be on our best behaviour. Don't worry, it's all good.
I'm sure.
Appreciate it.
Keith, there's one more hand up there if you want to grab that before we finish.
Yeah, Yunusa, apologies if I've pronounced that wrong. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. So I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the call. And yeah, it was really amazing. I'm not even sure why I came across this, but I just saw the call, and yeah, it's been really fun because like my really goal for this year is just really focus more on Power Platform, because I'm coming more from a data analytics background. So like I already do a lot of Power BI, but I just go an internship working more with the Power Platform, and I've it's just served as a little bit of a push to find that I'm going to actually focus on the Power Platform more, and move away a little bit from all of the SQL and Python, and just focus more on the Power BI, and then go more into Power Apps and stuff like that. So yeah, this call has been really great. I even started my YouTube channel, and it's just going to be all about Power Platform, and I'm really looking forward to doing a lot more writing, a lot more technical writing with the Power Platform. So yeah, I've really enjoyed this call, and yeah, thanks for doing this.
Oh, great. Well, thanks for the feedback, and good luck with the YouTube channel and everything else that you might try as well. So yeah, enjoy the journey, and best of luck for that. Thank you.
Thanks. And yeah, good luck with that. So shall we call it a day? I think we're all done with questions and comments. So thanks, Keith. Pleasure as always having you, and having all the lovely attendees here as well today. The recording will be available tomorrow, probably tomorrow afternoon, on our events page on the website. But if anybody wants this recording or any other recordings, you can just drop me a message on LinkedIn and I'll send them over to you.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for hosting, Sarah. Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you. Have a great evening, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah.
Cheers,
Bye, everyone.
Cheers, everyone.
Bye, everyone.